Alright, got an Accord in the shop that needs some compliance bushings. These are also called front lower control arm bushings. So let's get to work. And this is what we'll be working on today. This is a 2007 Accord EX 4-cylinder. Okay, we're going to be working on the front of the vehicle. So here at the rear of the vehicle, we're going to chalk both rear wheels. And I'm also going to put the parking brake on so this thing doesn't roll away when we jack it up. Okay, and looking from the front of the vehicle, we go underneath, and right here, right where this hole is, right in the center, that's our lift point. That's our designated lift point for the front of this vehicle. So we're going to put our jack there, and then we'll put the jack stands over there. And also behind the front wheels on each side, right here is our designated reinforced point where we're going to put our jack stands. So we're going to put one on this side, we're going to put one on the other side. I don't ever get under a vehicle with only a jack. I always put jack stands. And there's a shot of the jack placement right there. And the jack stands. Just give a little tug, make sure it's on there sturdy. We don't want this thing falling over when we're working on it. Alright, now I'm going to take my impact and break these free. 19mm socket. Now with an impact I can do this off the ground. If you don't have an impact, you're going to want to break these loose while the wheels or tires are still touching the floor. And as an added layer of protection or safety, I typically will put the rim tire combo under the vehicle like that. Just another barrier between me and the vehicle. Okay, now that we have the wheel off, there's our compliance bushing. There's our front lower control arm. And that's the bushing we got to replace. You can see this one's torn in a couple places. It's not destroyed yet. The one on the other side is worse. I'm going to do them both. I'll just film this side. And we have to disconnect a few things, so we'll just spray this down with penetrating oil, see if it helps us. Okay, so we got to get this fork off. So where is it? Down here. We're gonna have to deal with that bolt right there, and over here we got to pop that 14mm out, and there's the nut on the other side for that bolt right there. So I'll pop the 14 out first. Alright, I'm going to hold the bolt head on one side with a wrench, and then we'll hit this with the impact. Hopefully it comes off. You guys are right in my way. And it came off. I couldn't see what I was doing, but it came off. And this bolt already loosened up. Thank goodness we can get it out. Now these are fluted, so they have a tendency not to rust in there, but they can. And it's definitely a good idea to coat the bolts with some anti-seize or fluid film or something right here to prevent them from seizing in the future. Alright, now we just got to wiggle, or sometimes hit the top of this and knock it out. Now if it's stuck and doesn't want to come out, you may want to just try to leave it in place and work around it. It wasn't too long ago I replaced the struts on this vehicle, so that's why things are coming apart a little easier. Okay, we have to disconnect, at the very least we have to disconnect that nut from this stabilizer link. Now I have new stabilizer links and I'll be replacing them, but if you're not replacing them, you got to try to salvage this. Now these Honda ones, you're supposed to grab it from the front with a hex and then spin it off with a wrench or a pass-through socket. It sucks trying to do it that way. Typically you just strip these out if they've been on there any length of time. So I'm just going to hammer it with my impact. We'll see if we can pop it off. If not, we're going to have to hold it from the back. Alright, thank goodness it just popped right off. You may have to deal with those, and it may not be pleasant. Alright, with it out, we can just pull it out. And I have the other side disconnected, so now we should be able to pull the bar down at least a little ways and try to get a better angle, because I'm going to remove the whole thing. But if you're not removing it, then you can leave it alone. Now, if you're going to remove these completely and you possibly may have to reuse them, it's a good idea. Just mark where the top was, because these are directional, so that they have to go a certain way. Usually they'll put a paint mark either on the inside or the outside, and then the paint has to face a certain direction. On this model, I don't remember which one it is. It may be on the inside and the paint has to face the inside. I can't remember. But if you're not sure, just mark it. Alright, now we got to disconnect this ball joint. So we got to deal with this cotter pin. Where's the other side? Alright, I'm just going to cut that off. Alright, we'll pop this nut off with a 17mm. Alright, now we got to pop this up out of the joint. So we're going to put this back on. Come on. We'll leave it like that. Just a little bit of space. And now we're going to hit right here and try to loosen it. Alright, we're going to need a big hammer. And we put that nut on there so we don't damage the threads. In case our aim is off a little bit. But we just need to hit right here. Yeah, we're loose. Now we can take it all the way off. And we should be loose. Push it. Yeah, see, we can push it up out of the joint. So we're okay right now. Alright, we're going to take the big Milwaukee. This is a 19mm socket. We're going to pop this one off. Well, we're going to try. Oh yeah. No problem. Alright, hopefully you can see. We're going to go at this one with a swivel and an extension. Difficult to get in there, but impacting is the best way to break these suspension bolts loose that haven't been taken out in a while. We'll see if we can pop it out. We do lose a lot of our strength and impacting by using extensions and swivels, so definitely defeats the purpose of it, but that's the only way we can get in there. Well, hopefully I didn't knock you around too much, but we got it. Alright, hopefully you can see everything. Got to pop this up and out. We should be able to just lift it up. There we go. We just got to be careful with our knuckle there. We don't want to pull the CV axle out. Now, usually we can just pry right over here and pop it out. We might have to lift this up a little bit. Pry that out, and now we can turn it this way and pull it straight out. There we go. There's our lower control arm. Okay, there's a look at our lower control arm, front lower control arm. There's our bushing, their compliance bushing that we need to replace. Now, this is the left side of the car, so the driver's side here in the US. We're going to have to press this out and pop a new one in. Or if you don't have the tools to do that, you may just want to buy a whole new arm, in which case you'll get both bushings with it. But I'm just replacing the compliance bushing, so we got to press this out and put a new one in. Now we need to make sure we get this in the right orientation. And it's hard to see, well, you can see it better on the new one, but there's arrows right there, and then they do have a piece of paint right there. And there's a hump. You can see there's a hump right there, and it's not on the other side, so there's a hump on one side. So we need to get this in the right orientation, otherwise our suspension won't be right, and it could throw off our alignment angles. Honda tells you to mark the arrows, but there's arrows on both sides. You could actually put it in backwards if you did that, so we don't want to do that. I mark the dot right there. There's a circle or a dot. I put a dot in the same place, and we're going to put it back in exactly the same way. I'll show you the passenger side. Okay, here's the right side, or the passenger side in the US. There's our compliance bushing, and you can see this is the orientation it sits on this side. So I did the same thing. I find that little dot right there, or raised circle, and I put my dot right there. And you can see that our hump is on this side. Now if you use Honda factory stuff, everything matches perfectly. If you use aftermarket ones, these markings, or the way these humps are not exactly the same. So you'll have to, you know, move it around and see which matches the best, and then, you know, mark them that way. And you may have to mark the new part also, so that you get it back in the right spot. I typically avoid like marking it in 4 spaces, you know, because it's too easy to, you know, put it in wrong. I only want it one way, this way, just like that. And as you saw, the other side that we're filming wasn't in too bad a shape. It was just starting to rip, but you can see this one is ripped and broken all the way through. So instead of just replacing one, we're doing them both. Alright, while I'm thinking of it, there's our part number for the compliance bushing, and it's going to be the same on both sides. They're the same part number. Alright, to get those bushings out and get the new ones in, we can either use a kit like this, or we can use a press. I'm going to use this kit today. This is from Schley Products, model 68100. This is specifically made for Honda and Acura compliance bushings, and that's what it looks like right there. And so that's what I'm going to go with today, but we could just as easily use a press with some similar cups like this. I have a OTC master set, and I'm sure we could find the right sizes in there too, but seeing as this kit is made for this car, we'll go ahead and use it. Alright, as you can see, I mounted it in the vise. There is not a straight edge anywhere on this thing, so it's not easy to mount in a vise. You could easily, I guess, just set it on the floor and try to do it, but definitely easier if, you know, you got something like this holding it, but even then it's not perfect. Now we'll put one cup, in fact this one right here, this cup is going to go like that, and we're going to push it that way. And then this cup is going to sit on the other side, and it sits on the outside of this, and it's going to receive it. So this is our receiving cup. This is the one we're going to push it with. This one, you can see with that lip right there, it's perfectly mated to that, and it'll push it right through without any damage. Alright, we'll take our receiving cup, and this side is made for a different model, by the way. We'll just put it through there. And that's going to go like that. Our receiving cup goes on the other side with the washer. And then our Schley Products takes all the fun out of it, no impact. So we're not supposed to use an impact, whoops, and we're probably not supposed to drop it and go all the way underneath the car either. Okay, after fishing it out from under the car, I found it. We'll just spin it on. No, I'm not going to hammer it home with the impact. It's just saving me a little time. Alright, with a 24mm wrench, we'll use it on this side. And what is this? A 22mm socket on this side. And we're just going to go ahead and get it snug. We want to make sure, you see how that cup kind of popped into position? That's how we want it. We want it nice and flush right there. Alright, now I've got to try to hold this. Hardest part is popping it free. Once it pops, we're good. Come on, I might need a longer ratchet. I'm going to go get a longer ratchet. This one is in there tight. A little bit longer. Come on. Ah. We either broke it or it came free. No, it's free. The other side is not that tight. I think that's a 24-inch long breaker bar type ratchet. And we're through. Alright, there's our old bushing, and now we just got to grab the new one and put it in. Now if this right here, this mating surface is messed up, burrs, dirty, you have to clean it up. Ours looks good, we're good to go. Alright, now we just got to take our new one with the dot, right where we put our other dot, just like that, and we'll get our tool. We'll get it started back in. Let me put it together and I'll be right back. And I got it set up, finger tight, ready to go. We look over here for our dot, which couldn't be in a more inconvenient location. And if you noticed, I put a little bit of paint right on the very edge of this, because you can see once we put the cup on there, I can't see where the markings are on our bushing. So I put a marking right on the end there to help us line it up. We just got to get it close. Doesn't have to be perfect. We're not sending this thing to the moon. Alright, now that we got it going, now we just got to run it in by hand, just like this, all the way in. We just got to try to keep it nice and straight. And as we're running it in, we just want to keep an eye out, make sure it's actually going in straight and not cockeyed. This tool does a pretty good job of pressing them straight in and out. You try to put this on the press, sometimes you can get them cockeyed and it's hard to get them straightened back out. Now we don't want to go in too far because we got to leave a reveal or an edge on each side. So let's check it. Okay, with it loosened up, you can see what it looks like. See how that bushing sticks out a little bit. It's a little bit wider than our control arm. So we just want to leave the same space on each side. And it looks like I got it right on the first shot. Passenger side, it took me a couple times. I stopped and then had to go a little bit further in and then a little bit further in, and then I got it. Better to do it that way, better to stop short, look at it, and then go a little bit further than try to push it back out. So, looks like we're good to go on this. And looking at how we lined it up, I think we got it pretty good. And if you're going to replace these stabilizer links like I am, it's definitely easier to get to this top bolt with the arm out of the way. So I would definitely work on this with the arm out of the way before you put it back in place. Alright, now we just got to set it up into place. We're going to start on that end, we'll fish that in, and then we'll bring this over and then clip that. Or maybe we'll clip that and get that in. It's a tight fit. We're going to have to do some wiggling. If this is all dirty with you know, rocks and grit and stuff, make sure to clean that out, make it a little bit easier on the install. Now Honda recommends that these bolts be replaced, the one that goes in here and the one that goes in here. So this one, let's see if that's at all legible. There's your part number there. That's what it looks like. And this bolt over here, there's your part number for that one. Hopefully you can read that. Sometimes it's hard to read the numbers on these bags. That's what it looks like. Now I will put some fluid film right on the shank here. Not on the threads, but from here to here to help from seizing in the future. So both of these bolts are going to get some fluid film right there. And if you're going to replace the stabilizer links, which now is a good time, I'm going to go with Moog. So on the left side you can see there's our part number right there. I typically stray away from Honda parts on the stabilizer links or sway bar links, whatever you want to call them. I'm not a fan of that design. The Moog, I like these better. If you do want to go with the Honda part, you can see there, this is an actual one. There's the part number for this side, for the front left. Now, like I was talking about the paint before, this side, the left side, has yellow. The other side has white, and that paint should go to the outside. So by putting it to the outside, the correct portion will be up. And yeah, you can see the paint's to the outside, and I marked it on the up, or the T for top. So that's how that goes. I'll show you the parts on the passenger, or on the passenger side. Now, as far as the other side of the car, the passenger side or the right side, the bolts are going to be the same. So you can buy two of each as far as bolts, and it's the same part number. But if you're going to replace the stabilizer links, they are a different part number. And if you're going to go with Moog, there's the part number for this one on the right, and you should always double check part numbers. Don't take my word for it. And there's the Honda part number, and that's how it is, just like that. And you can see that it's painted white, and so that should go to the outside like that. So that's how this one would be orientated on the car. So white is for right and yellow is for left. And I'll try to get you the part number for the nuts too. These nuts should always be replaced because they grab on. They're a locking type nut, so they should always be replaced whenever you take them off. Now the Moog parts come with brand new nuts. The Honda parts don't, and you got to order nuts also. And you're in luck. I actually had the nuts, and you can see you have to buy a big pack of some of these nuts. In fact, this part number right here, if you can read that, hopefully you can see that, that is going to be the top nut up here. So when this is situated correctly on the vehicle, that's the top nut. The bottom nut is going to be these over here. That's the part number for them. So why Honda decided they should be different, I don't know. I believe the flange, or the area where the hex comes out, I think it's slightly bigger on these than it is these, probably for production reasons. But anyway, that's the nuts that go on there if you're going to buy the Honda one. Like I said, if you buy Moog, it comes with it. And all I did was take some fluid film. You can see, just put it right there. Alright, now I'm just going to take the arm, and I'm going to take the compliance bushing, and I'm going to put that in first. And then we're going to kind of slide that end over into its home over there. And we're going to fight with it a little bit, and probably need some pry bars. We should have those handy. Hopefully I can film it, but it's going to be a bit of a fight to get it back in. Not terrible, but just a little bit of a fight. We'll just get that in like that. And I'm going to have to move up under here. We'll swing that around and put it into place. Try to get you a shot. Alright, you saw I just stuck it in there. I had to lift this up to bring it down up under, and then just pop it back in its housing there. Now I try to line this up, get the bolt, try to line it up, and see if we can't pop this back on. And then the last thing we'll do is try to get that one aligned. That one we got to pry up and down just a little bit and back and forth to get it perfect. Alright, you can see what I'm working with. It's just a matter, we got to get that aligned, and we got to get that up and aligned with the hole. A pry bar, an alignment tool, and a hammer. Those are usually your friends. Let's see. You can just put that in there. You can see that. So that aligned it fairly well. Not bad. And we'll just come over here and pry this up just a little bit. Kind of get it a little closer to where we need to be. Alright, a little more difficult when you're laying on the ground. If I had a lift, it would have been a little easier. But got that bolt in, got that one in, and got our nut on. So we're looking much better. We definitely want to get these started by hand so we don't cross thread them. May have to lift up on the knuckle there to get it to line up. But you can see I'm choked up. We're going in. If there was any resistance like being cross-threaded, I wouldn't be able to tighten it right now. But, so, this is one area where I like to do it by hand. Alright, I left a little bit of a gap. We just want to get it close, but we're not going to do our final tightening yet. And same thing with this side. We're just going to run it in until it's very close, but not all the way. And that should do it just like that. Alright, now I'm going to put the stabilizer link in place. That's how I'm going to position it with the grease fittings. That one is going to be angled down towards the front of the car. This one's going to be up towards the rear. That's really the only way that I've found that we can actually get to them and grease them. Now I did already pump a couple pumps of grease into these, so that way I don't have to worry about doing it on the car. But if we put it like that, we can get to it. If we flip it around and do it that way, it's much harder. This one angled up in the front, you can't really get to it. So that's how I'm going to do it. Hopefully you guys can see. It's kind of the only angle I have. And if I put you guys over here, I won't be able to see. Alright, now we got to get them snugged up. The torque specs from Honda, 22 for each one. For Moog, they want you to do 22, and then the top one they want you to go to 30 foot-pounds. So we're going to do 22 and 30 foot-pounds. Now the nice thing about Moog is they put this area right here where we can put a wrench. So we'll just put a wrench like that, and then we can tighten it up nice and easy. Alright, I'm just going to take my impact and snug this up. It's a lock nut, so it's kind of a pain to do it by hand. It's much easier to run it down, and now we can do our torque. Now you probably can't see, but I'm going to do the same thing with the top one. Alright, now we'll try to torque this bottom one to 22. Well, we'll make sure it's at least 22. Okay, I didn't hammer it home too hard. Let's see if we can get that top one. That's kind of a crappy area. Okay, there's my setup. As you can see, not a very good angle. See if we can torque it to 30. Alright, let's see. Alright, it was already 30. I think I hammered it home a little too much with the torque wrench. I'm sorry, with my impact wrench, but oh well. And those are 15mm nuts, by the way. Moog doesn't like to use Honda's standards. Alright, now we just got to take our fork. We're going to put it up into place on the strut and on the lower arm. Now we just got to make sure that we align this portion right here on the back with the tab on the back of our strut. I'll try to get you a shot here in a minute, but right on the back of our strut is a little tab, and it has to align with that slot, and then we can put our upper bolt in. Now the lower bolt and nut, Honda says that this has to be replaced, and I agree because it's a lock nut. So there's our part number for that. And although Honda doesn't say we have to replace the bolt, I have a new one, so I'm going to use it. And in case you're curious, there's the part number for that bolt. And like before, I'll put a little bit of fluid film right here on the flutes. So we'll reuse that one, and then this and the nut will be brand new, so we will not be using that. Alright, if I can get a shot, hopefully you can see the tab right there. These aftermarket ones, they have a pretty small tab. The factory Honda ones, it's a little bit larger, but we just got to make sure we get that lined up. Alright, now we're just going to take our fork, kind of drop it down into place, and then let's see, we can bring it up under the strut. Now I need two hands, and then I'll have to align it at the bottom. So I'm just going to bring it up and get it into place. Now that lined up extremely well. Sometimes you got to fight with it a little more, lift the knuckle up and down, and it definitely helps to have some kind of alignment tool like this. You can just go in on each side and help line it up so we can get that bolt through. Because sometimes, yeah, you got to knock that bolt through. It doesn't quite want to line up perfectly. And like most Hondas, we're going to go front to back, so the bolt is going to be pointed towards the back of the car. Alright, using our alignment tool, we'll try to get it squared away as we can, and then put our bolt in. And you can see it didn't go all the way in. Usually I'll just tap on it and just lift up out here, just lift up a little bit, and while I'm tapping it'll go through. And we can just get our nut started. Alright, now we just got to put the nut right there, and you see it won't go in, so we got to lift up just a little bit. See how that came up? Now it'll go in because there's a groove back there. And let me reach around the camera. There's a groove in there on the strut, and if it's not lined up in that, it won't go in. Alright, now it's started. Alright, hopefully you can see. It's hard to tell in the camera, but we're lined up good, but we're just a little bit low. So I need to bring this suspension or the fork up just a little bit. So we'll put the jack under there and we'll bring it up just a hair, just till it makes contact, and then we'll snug this bolt up. Because if we just put the jack under there and just raise the suspension like we're gonna to tighten the rest of the bolts, this fork can jump right over that little bracket. I've seen it happen. And so we need to make sure that it's snug enough so that it won't jump over that tiny little bracket. Especially on these aftermarket ones, it'll jump right over it, and then your fork is going to be stuck on the strut. You don't want that. So we'll take our time and we'll just put it up there and snug it down. Alright, that's where I'm going to put the jack, right there. And that's where I'm going to be jacking the suspension up the whole time. But right now we're just going to lift this fork up just a hair so we can snug it, and then afterwards we'll lift the whole suspension. Alright, right there. It's right to the bottom of that bracket, so now we're perfect. Now we can tighten it up. And seeing as we have the impact right here, okay, now that that bolt is snug and we don't have to worry about it slipping up and over the strut bracket, now we'll go ahead and raise the suspension up to basically its ride height. So all we need to do is we're just going to continue jacking it up until it just starts to come off the jack stand over there. As soon as it does that, we're going to stop. And it just came off the jack stand, so now we're good. Okay, the reason we did that step and the reason it's so critical is because we have a bunch of rubber bushings on our suspension. Of course we know that, that's what we were replacing. And so we want to tighten those rubber bushings up where they're going to live most of their life. We don't want to tighten them down out of position, because then when we bring them back up, those rubber bushings can bind and it can cause them to fail early or prematurely. So we don't want that to happen, so this is the way we do it to kind of prevent that. Alright, next we're going to torque this castle nut right here. The torque spec from Honda is 58 to 65, so we'll bring it down to 58 and then we'll see if our holes are aligned with the castle nut so that we can put a cotter pin in there. If it's not, then we'll tighten it up a little bit more until we get the holes lined up straight. That's why we don't have one solid torque spec and we have a little bit of a range. Alright, now we'll look at our castle nut and see if we're okay. Look at that. The hole going straight through. Perfect. So now we'll put our cotter pin in. Okay, now that our castle nut is torqued, we're going to use a brand new cotter pin. We're just going to put it through just like that. And I'm going to bend it down and up. Now Honda tells you to bend it to the sides on this one, but I found that by doing that it loosens up just the way this thing sits in the castle nut. They tend to loosen up, and so I don't do it that way. So you can do it if you want, but that's not how I do it. And there's a shot of the finished product. Alright, we're going to torque this top fork bolt to 32 foot-pounds. Alright, now we're going to snug up this lower fork bolt if I can stop bumping the camera. I bumped you a few times, but it was a better shot. Okay, the torque on this lower fork bolt is 47 foot-pounds, so that's what we'll torque it to. And now we'll torque that rear bolt to 47 foot-pounds also. Oh, so close. Okay, now I'll torque that bolt that's going through our compliance bushing to 61 foot-pounds. Alright, now that we got that done, we can lower our suspension back down. Okay, now's a good time to take a second, double check our work. Make sure we didn't miss anything, make sure we're not leaving any bolts loose, anything like that. Obviously, suspension is a critical component. We want to make sure everything's done right. And that's what she looks like, all nice and shiny and new. And now that everything's back together, I'll show you that from this angle, whoops, and after I bump the camera all around, I can get to that grease fitting just like that. And on this side you can see no problem. Alright, the torque on the lug nuts, 80 foot-pounds. And it's a good idea to double check the torque on these after 10 or 20 miles, especially on aluminum rims like this. And of course we can't forget our wheel chocks. And it's a good idea to have the alignment checked after doing suspension work like this. Well, there you go. That's how I do the compliance bushings on these Accords. And as always, if the video helped you out and you liked it, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.